Hi everyone, and welcome back to Maths and Physics with assignments where we make maths easy. We get you exam ready, right? So in today's lesson on equations, we're looking at the fourth variation of equations, and this is quadratic equations, which is going to become a very big topic. And yeah, we have to solve by means of factorization, right? Now in itself, there are four variations. Sometimes I can actually say there's five. Can give you perfect squares. We can give you where all the terms are positive. We can give you where the middle term is negative. Can give you where the middle term is negative and the last term is negative, which I haven't done in this. Can give you where the first term is a prime number, and then we can give you where the first term is a value greater than 1 but not a prime number, right? But I'm just looking at the four basic variations to ensure that your classwork is covered, right? So solve for x, right? So they've given me 9x squared plus 24x plus 16, right? So should see 9 can be 3 times 3, 16 can be 4 times 4. So 3x times 3x gives me 9x squared, 4 times 4 gives me 16, right? But if I say that 3x times this 4, it gives me 12x times 2 would give me 24x, right? So once that is thing there, I'm dealing with perfect squares. So 9x plus 24x plus 16. So when I say perfect squares, the two brackets will be exactly the same. So 9x squared is 3x times 3x. 16 is 4 times 4. But you see there 4 times 3x is 12x. 3 times 4 gives me 12x. And 12x plus 12x then gives me 24x. That's why I'm multiplying by 2, because I have two brackets that are the same. Right? And from there now, remember I'm solving for x. So 3x plus 4 equals 0. I don't need to write it twice because it's the same bracket. If I take 4 over, it becomes negative 4. And from there, negative 4 divided by the 3x gives me negative 4 over 3. Right? So that is factorizing via perfect squares. Right? If we look at the next one. So for x, we have x squared plus 15x plus 36. So this is a traditional quadratic equation. What we are testing is, can you use the last term here, 36, the factors of that to get to 15. So the x squared in the front will always be and can only be x times x to give me x squared. So that is not our problem. Our problem is, how do we use 36 to get to 15? So if we look at factors of 36, we have 36 times 1, which is 36. But then if I say 36 plus 1, that's positive 36, positive 1, gives me 37. So 37 is not the value in the middle. Then if you go to the second factors of 36, I have 12 times 3, which gives me 36. But plus 12 plus 3 then gives me 15. Can also go to 6 times 6, which gives me 36. But 6 plus 6 then gives me 12. Take note, all the signs are positive because they have a positive second term and a positive last term. So therefore I'm dealing only with positives. Right, so to get to 15, I have to use this middle row where I said 12 times 3 is 36, but 12 plus 3 gives me 15. Right, so x squared became x times x, 36, 12 times 3. And there I have 12x plus 3x, then gives me 15x. Right, so there I have factorized using the factors. So from there I can now say x plus 12 equals 0 or x plus 3 equals 0. If I take 12 over, it gives me negative 12. If I take positive 3 over, it gives me negative 3. Right, x equals negative 3. Although I'm doing now 4 variations, I will take the time to, because I've now year in, year out dealing with grade 12s. Picked up some grade 12 still struggle to factorize. And yeah, they even go as far as buying the calculators that does the factorization for them. So yeah, I'm going to do a lot more on factorization with the hope I'm going to show you as many methods as possible as I know, with the hope you get better and you start perfecting factorization. Right, solve for x. Now, there you see the previous one, we had all terms positive. Now the middle term is negative, but the end is positive. So the only way to go from the end term to there is I have to use negative times negative gives me positive, but negative and negative would give me negative value there. So x times x, as I said, will be x squared. So the x squared is not our stress. The factors of 32 to get to 33. So minus 32 times negative 1 gives me 32, right? But at the same time, negative 32 minus 1 then gives me negative 33. Can say negative 16 times negative 2 gives me positive 32, which is there. But minus 16 minus 2 then gives me minus 18. Can say minus 8 times negative 4 equal 32. But minus 8 minus 4 gives me negative 12. So of the three values I got there, I want negative 33. Therefore, I'm going to use minus 32 and minus 1. So if we take the sum as given, x squared is simply x times x. Positive 32, negative 32 times negative 1 gives me positive 32. But minus 32x minus 1x would give me then minus 33x. And then from there, we say x minus 32 equals 0. X minus 1 equals 0. If I take negative 32 over positive 32, if I take minus 1 over positive 1. So I hope you see how that pattern is the same. The key we're catching out here is we're testing your factors. Can you use your factors to get to the middle term? Right, now let's look at the next problem. So solve for x. Now this one is the more complex one, and we always include one of this in the exams under factorization. So we have 5x squared minus 16x plus 12 equals 0. So now we no more have 5x squared. We know x squared is simply x times x, which is x squared. But now I have 5 and I have 12. So in theory, I have to use the factors of 5 and 12 to get to 16. So in simple terms, all I'm going to do is I'm going to say 5 times 12, which then gives me 60. Right? So factors of 60 that add up to negative 16. So first I can say minus 60 times negative 1 gives me positive 60. Negative 60 minus 1 gives me negative 61. So it's not the value there. Minus 12 times negative 5 gives me positive 60. Right? But minus 12 minus 5 gives me minus 17, so it's not negative 16. Then I can say minus 6 times negative 10 gives me positive 60, but minus 6 minus 10 then gives me negative 16, so I'm using these values to get to 16. Right now, so you can see negative 6 go directly in 12, so therefore for 12 I have negative 6. But negative 6 times what would give me positive 12? Negative 6 times negative 2 give me positive 12. And then 5x, 5 is a prime number, so it can only be 5 and 1. Right? So 5 times 1 gives me 5. Right? So and for the middle term now, minus 6 times x is the minus 6. Minus 2 times the 5 at the end gives me the minus 10. And minus 10 minus 6 then gives me minus 16. So 5x minus 6 equals 0, or x minus 2 equals 0. Take 6 over, it becomes positive 6. Divide by whatever's in front of x, so that gives me 6 over 5. Or take negative 2 over, and x equals positive 2. You can also go a second method, right, which also one of my colleagues showed me. 5x squared minus 16x plus 12 equals 0. And you hear what I said? One of my colleagues showed me. Right, so if you take the time and you're a lifelong learner, you will find different ways to solve the same problem. Right, now, I have 5x squared and I have 12. Right, so the key is, if I take 16, can I break 16 up in such a way that I have a common factor for 5 and a common factor for 12? Right, so if I take multiples of 5, 5, 10, 15, 20, you can see, can write 16 then as negative 10, because 10 is a multiple of 5. And therefore 12, if I count multiples of 6, 6, 12, 18, etc., 6 can also go in 12. So minus 10 minus 6 would give me minus 16. But minus 10 is a multiple of 5. And minus 6 is multiples of 6, 12, etc. Right? And so now, for those two terms, I look for common factor. What can go into 5 and negative 10? 5x. All right? So if I take out 5x, 5x squared divided by 5x would give me x. Minus 10x divided by 5x then gives me negative 2. Alright? There minus 6 goes in both, so minus 6x divided by negative 6 gives me x. 12 divided by negative 6 gives me negative 2. And the key concept is these two brackets then will always be the same. So if I take out x minus 2 as a common factor, I'm left with 5x minus 6. So now x minus 2, same as the top, equals 0, or 5x minus 6 equals 0. Take 2 over, x equal to 2, or x equals 6 over 5. Right, so I hope you understand what I've done there. That is just a different way of solving it. Wish you nothing but the best. God bless. Bye.